Hello everyone, it's Karen Burniston here with the class day instruction video for our class, Card Making with Dies Fall and Christmas Pop-Up Cards. Now, if you are watching this on November 20th, 2021, the day that it goes live, then you actually have somebody from our company in the comments of wherever you're watching this. So that could be Facebook or YouTube. And so we're there to help answer questions. The idea is that you can actually craft along with me and make your cards right now. So if you are crafting along with me, making your cards right now, what that means is you've already done your prep work and you have turned this kit of big bulk papers into two card kits where everything has been cut, scored, and die cut ready to assemble. If that's not you, in other words, you bought a kit, but you didn't realize you had prep work, it's fine. Stick with us, watch the video. It'll still be here for you to rewatch later, but if you're watching it live, you have the chance to ask questions. So maybe this is good for you because you can just watch me put my cards together, ask me any questions along the way, and then at a time later, after you've done your prep work, then you can rewatch the video to put your cards together. Okay, so how do you do your prep work if you didn't do that? So included in your kit were some really nice instructional handouts. At the time that we put the kits together, we didn't have the prep work video link yet. So this now includes the prep work video link. If you get a downloaded version of it, if you want both, then you can print more if you need them or whatever, and it has the link to the prep work video. We also loaded the prep work video right onto the website karenburniston.com where you bought your kit. So you go to that kit instruction thing and you'll find the prep work video. And then you can go watch that. And what that is that me doing all of the paper pre-cutting instructions, die cutting instructions for both cards to turn them from this bulk, pack into these ready to assemble kits. Okay, so I'm going to assume now that we're down to where everybody's ready to assemble on their cards. So what are we making today? We are making a fall themed garden bench and street lantern card. Okay. And that's in a fall theme. But really it's kind of a blueprint too. You're going to make this pretty fall themed card today, but absolutely you could swap out the papers and make it again, and it could easily translate into a holiday card or a spring card or anything you want. And then we are going to do a Christmas card with the street lantern and the tiny gnomes. And once again, this would look great for a spring card as well, to swap out the papers and the styling a little bit. So definitely take it as an opportunity to make two cards, but also to learn two card designs, because you have those beautiful instructions and this video in perpetuity, so to speak. Okay, there is a required die, but you don't need them today because you've already done all your prep work. So the required dies, those of you who have kind of wandered across this video today and you're like, what's this all about? The way we do classes now, especially the online versions, is rather than pre-cut all the pieces for you, we provide for you bigger papers, and then there is a required die requirement, so that you will cut your own pieces using the dies. So it's really very educational that way. Not only do you get these dies that are yours to keep forever, but you really learn how to use them this way. And then all of your leftover materials end up being yours. So if you've ever gone to a class where all you get is exactly precisely the amount you need to make the two cards, this is better because you get all your leftovers, but you have to be willing to prep your own kit. But people seem to like it, so it's good. All right, what do you need for your tools today? The best thing I can say is I hope that you have some glue. I like my Lineco neutral pH adhesive, like this stuff, and I put it in our fine tip bottle with the 18 gauge yellow tip, which is a little bit wider than the 20 gauge, and then I keep it while I'm crafting in a damp paper towel in a wee yogurt jar. And they do have really pretty limited edition wee yogurt jars every once in a while at the grocery store where you can get a real pretty one. Otherwise they're just plain. And then, the secret is, if you're crafting every day, you don't have to recap your bottle, but you do have to squirt your paper towel. So you come in the morning and you squirt your paper towel so that it stays damp. But if you ever do forget and your tip dries up or gets paper towel sucked up into it, there is a use and care video on our fine tip bottles on our website. Just go look up this product. And then, on the product page is a video that shows you how to take them apart and clean them all out in the sink and get them going again if you ever clog them up. And that goes if you ever get the lid, the needle lid stuck inside and you need to go soak it and get that out. Okay, other tools that you're going to need: pair of scissors. Optional, but quick stick can be real helpful when we're putting together gnomes. Just being able to pick up little pieces and parts. Bone folder, optional but helpful when you're trying to make nice crisp folds. A pencil and a ruler, that's just a good rule of thumb. I don't know for sure I'm going to make you actually measure anything, but if I do, then you've got them. And then for styling, if you want to have a little brown ink and maybe a little blending tool or something, you could hit the edges of grass and acorns and things, give them a little dimension. I'm not much of a tape runner person anymore. I pretty much use my glue for everything, but if you have a tape runner and you like to use that for paper on paper, feel free. And then I kind of told you in the supplies to have some kind of double stick tape or whatever, but and that was mostly for when we were die cutting to make things into stickers. But if you do happen to have handy maybe some little mini glue dots or some kind of or some tape, some kind of dry adhesive, the only space that I think that's preferred. So when we go to put this pop-up on the front of this gunmetal, if you put glue on it, it takes a little while to set up. Whereas if you've got something like a mini glue dot or a little piece of tape, you can get that pop-up in there just real fast. So I might suggest a dry adhesive for that. If you don't have that out today, don't worry about it. You can just use your glue. All right, let's jump right in. We're going to start with our fall themed card. So that's going to be all of the pieces that have the garden bench and the fall colors in them. And what you want to do is just get all of your pieces out. Now, if you have anything like I've got this little tray that was a gift from a friend, and it kind of helps me with little pieces, not lose them on class day. Because boy, we do have some little pieces, don't we? Little hearts and gnome parts and things like that. So, all right, I'm just going to dump. I'm going to dump till everything just falls. All the little pieces just fall out into my tray. Okay, let's start first by just getting the decoration for our base card, and then we'll jump into pop-ups. Get you warmed up. Let the coffee hit this morning. You do have some pre-cuts that we cut for you. Those are pieces that are going to be used across both cards. Just leave them in the bag for now. I'll tell you when we get there, you know, we'll pull out the pumpkin and stuff. Okay, it's up to you as to whether you have your handout nearby or not. You know, there are some little diagrams and stuff that might help you if, you know, you're having a hard time seeing on the video. You know, it may help you to look at those diagrams. So I leave that to you as to whether you have those out. But we're going to start here with our 4x9 slimline card where we've cut that little panel out. And let's just get sort of our base pieces down. For the front, we're going to use the I Love Fall most of all, lovely photoplay papers. And then you should have a strip of brown that you cut that will basically fill in the bottom so that when you glue that on, you've got pretty much an equal little border of ginger all the way around. Let me just open that up so you can see. Like this, all right? So depending on whether you're using your glue or whether you're using your tape runner, just go ahead and get that piece adhered to the front. So since I'm starting with the big one, I want to look at the top edge and the side edges, and I'm not worried about the bottom edge because I have the brown to fill that in. So see, I'm going to make sure that I have an equal amount of ginger on these three sides, even though this is wider. And then what's going to fill that in is going to be this brown cardstock. Okay, and for that one I can look at the bottom edge and overlap the paper as much as I need to give myself a nice even border. So for me, that's going to go pretty close to the bottom of the stem of the maple leaf there to get an even amount. Okay. So that is our step one. I know you all are crafting with me, so I'm going to try not to go too fast on this stuff. On the class day, if you're watching this live as it's airing on the Stampin' Scrapbook Expo channels, then you probably don't necessarily want to, well, I don't even know if you can. I guess if you're watching it live, you probably can't stop it. But on the replay, once you're watching it back on replay, you're in control. This is a YouTube video. You know, you can hit pause, slow it down. Sometimes people like to go down to where the playback speed is and put it at like a 50% speed or something so that it goes really slow, and then just mute the video and put on closed captioning. And then that way you don't have to hear me talking really slow, but you can see me crafting really slow. Okay, the next thing that I'm doing is I'm taking my Happy Fall greeting piece, this one, and I'm going to glue that to the slightly larger wine colored cardstock, and just, you're going to have a real thin border on that one. Okay, like this. And then where this is going to go is here in this background piece. Now, it's up to you as to whether you center it or whether you try to have the same border kind of going around these three sides. Well, actually, if I do that, I do kind of center it. In other words, it may end up a little bit closer to this edge than this edge, and that's fine because you have this border over here to make the difference, if that makes sense. So it doesn't really matter if it were butted right up to this, but attached here. Does that make sense? It would be fine. So anyway, what I'm saying is glue this on so that it's aesthetically pleasing to you. And again, you can use a tape runner if you're more of a tape runner type of person. Where I live in South Texas, Houston area, glue has just been my best bet for adhesive. Just, you know, it doesn't come unstuck in the humidity, and I've had the best luck using my glue for pretty much everything, not having things come unstuck. Okay, so here we have the base of our card from the outside, and then we're going to go ahead and keep going and put some papers on the inside as well, and then we'll get into the pop-ups. So let me open this up so you can see if I can find a spot. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, so opening this up, what we want to do is we want to find our other big pieces of paper. So you have leaves for this panel and you have the yellow cardstock for this panel. And in both cases, I just centered them in the panel. Okay, and I don't think there's an up and down to the leaves, but I'll leave that to you to decide which way you think looks the most pleasing to you. And once again, tape runner if you prefer it, or glue. So hopefully in some parts of the country, there is still some fall weather going on right now on November the 20th. Probably here in Houston, it's just fall, finally. I'm recording this early, but we've been having some pretty warm weather. Hasn't felt very fall-like yet, or at least for not, well, there's been a couple days, you know, where it's a little cooler. But for a lot of you, you probably have snow and everything, so you may have to save your happy fall card. Use it next year. Okay, so I have my papers on. All right, and then this business up here is you have a strip of the wine cardstock and you have a strip of the leaf paper, and you're just going to center that in that strip. That'll be step one. So I really like this new way that we've started doing classes with either Zoom instruction or YouTube instruction, but having the students, you know, kit their own pieces, because I really feel that you're more likely to remake the cards if you've done all the prep work as well. Because I know you can just imagine taking those paper pre-cutting instructions and figure out what your substitutions are going to be, you know. So I'm going to make this again in a spring color. So instead of the snowflake paper, it's going to be flowers, and you're going to print out your little handout and write flowers paper, you know, whatever your paper choices are. And then just follow the cut diagrams. Make the card again. Follow the die cutting. Completely repeatable. And we have had students, since we've started doing the online classes this way, we have had a lot of students remake the cards, either in the same colors or in new colors. And that is always, as an instructor, delightful to see. All right, where this is going to go is, I mean, it's just decorative. Where I found it looked best was a little bit down from the yellow, so like that. I don't know if I gave you a measurement or not. I'm not going to measure. I'm going to say, how about here? And that should span just right across the yellow. And like I said, it's just decorative. It wouldn't, you know, it's up to you. Artist choice. All right, so now we have our base of our card and we're ready to get into some pop-ups. Okay, and you know, I think we'll wait and do our little greeting thing and stuff at the end. Let's get your bench in, your pop-ups in, and then we'll do that as a final a final thing, and we'll do this at the end as well. Okay, so we're going to set this stuff aside. And we're ready now to jump in on pop-up. Okay, let me find something. That color's not going to go real well with my mat there, so let's find something else. Now, you can do the garden bench out of cardstock. I mean, generally a medium weight cardstock is probably better than even the heaviest weight because of all the back and forth folds, but any cardstock would do. But this happens to be a pop-up where you can use a thicker double-sided pattern paper and it will work just fine. The only drawback to that, which I talked about in the prep work video, is that with pattern paper, it's a little harder to see the fold lines. And I did ask you during prep work if you did a little stenciling of putting that little drawing on there or whatever, you can kind of help you see where the fold line is for the outside tabs, because it's really the outside tabs that are sometimes hard to see. Let's see if I can get close to the camera here. I don't know that I have very good light in here today. Let's see. Can you see? See if I get real close. All right, so I stenciled in the black box just to help me know that the score line was kind of a little bit below that box. And then that's going to be the same location over here. Sometimes if you just put your thumbnail in, it'll find it for you, you know, which it should be. Let's see. It should be real even. When you folded it, it's pretty even with where this comes up and over, if that's helpful as well. So yeah, in hindsight, I maybe should have done this class and had you do the bench out of a cardstock for your first time, but I really liked this paper. I was like, oh, I really want to use this paper, so I'm gonna have you suffer through finding those 4 fold lines that are out on the end. Now, if you had to, because you have the dies, because you prepped your own kits, you could take your die and say, oh, okay, did I hit the right spot? Because you can see the score line on the die right there. So that would be another way. But you really do want your 4 score lines to be scored in the correct spot out on the ends. All right, so those are the 4 tabs that are going to, they're actually, right now they're folded the wrong way. They need to be folded to the back, but I was just doing that so you could see contrast here. All right, so all 4 of those are actually going to fold to the back. The 4 out on the end, because this is a glue-in design, meaning those 4 tabs are what's going to actually hold it inside the card. All right, so now they're folded to the back. All right, the rest of the folding is pretty easy on the bench. All right, the first one that we need to find, this one probably should be pretty easy to see. Just hit it towards the light if you need to, but you should have a score line across the arms of your bench that are basically just kind of in the middle, and then it'll travel all the way across the bench, basically right at the top of the slat. I don't know for sure that the die actually puts a tick mark in it for you, but it's such a small area that it will fold naturally anyway. So if you take your thumbnail and you get in there and you fold those arm folds, and they have a score line in them, so it'll be easy to do. And then, boy, that's a way for you to check your ends, right? Because they're going to line up on the ends right there. They're going to line up. Okay. And then just press it down. So you can press down those 3. I know I'm going really slow on this one, y'all, because this is not a class where I can tell if I'm going too fast, so forgive me if I'm going too slow, but I'm going to go slow for this so that everyone is successful. And then when you go to make it again and you need to watch this again, you can either watch the full assembly video on the bench, which probably goes a little faster, or you can rewatch this one and just, you know, make me go a little faster, slide me forward. All right, let's see where we're at right now. So we folded in half. Way to check that you folded in half is that these ends out here line up. Now this doesn't line up, but these ends out here line up, okay? And then we're going to open it as though you could sit in the bench. So see, right now I can sit in the bench, but I don't have any arms, you know, to hold my armrest or my lemonade. So what we need to do is we need to pop this fold that right now is a valley fold. We're looking into the valley. We actually want that to become a mountain fold. So all we have to do is just grab it and go forward. And where it's going to pivot is right here where it's attached to the bench. See right there. It's going to pivot and it'll shoot that arm out to the back. Down here it actually doesn't pivot. The whole bench just kind of folds in line with it. See? See, you don't even have a fold line right there. All right, then we're gonna do the same thing over here. Actually, no, I'm gonna repeat this one. All right, so we're sitting in the bench. I wanna make sure I'm up against right cardstock here. Okay, we're sitting in the bench, but we have no place to put our arms. Okay, so we need to take the armrest and we need to reverse the fold, and that's going to make it want to pivot right there where it's attached to the back of the bench. All right, and then it'll make this arm shoot out the back, this arm will go straight down. Or leg, I guess I should have legs of the bench. All right, let's do the other side, same thing. So we're going to reverse this fold, then right here it's going to pivot. Okay, and that is the shape of the bench. It's actually a very easy fold. Let's look at it from the side there. See, we've got the arms coming up and over the seat of the bench. You know, this is flat forward. And then we have those 4 tabs that are going to attach it, as you can imagine, inside the card. Okay, so that's the bench. All right, now it's ready to go on the card. We could put it in the card, but you do have an option with the garden bench, which is these little extra platforms. And so when you put your extra platforms in, oh, wrong card, then it actually allows you to elevate your pillows and whatever you're going to have sit in the bench away from the back of the bench, because they're actually attached to platforms, see, rather than just plastered to the back of the bench. Okay, so to do that, it's going to be easier for us to find those little platforms and add them now. So you should have 2 smalls and a large. So let's find those. They're in the same color as the bench. Once again, I asked you to do a little stenciling on it so it'd be easier for you to see where the fold lines are. Let me see here. Okay, I'll get real close so you can see. The 2 outside ones are easy because they're just right next to the tapered, where the taper ends and they go there, there's a little fold. So see, I can put my thumbnail in, fold it over. See, just the tab folds over. And same thing on the one that has the arrow on it. Just kind of at the base of the arrow where the taper ends, you've got a little fold. I'm sorry, these are so small, they really are. And then for these little ones, I had you stencil the little square on because that would give you a good indication that the fold line's just about the same distance from the square as it is to the arrow as to the thing. See, it's a real small, the small ones are a small little platform. It looks like a picture hanger, right? That's kind of what it looks like this, all right? And right now you have it folded with the blue to the inside, and that's fine. It doesn't matter which way is out and which way is back. You know, like on certain projects you may want to reverse your folds because you want your little platforms to be the same color as your bench. We don't care because we're going to put a gnome or a pillow in front of each one of those, and it will be easier for me to show you here on the original how to attach it if I have contrast between the colors. So I'm going to leave it with the whatever's on the back side. I think this is leaves, so mine happens to be maroon because it probably went right through a leaf. Let's see what the rest of mine look like. See, like this one's orange. But essentially, I'm going to leave it with the blue on the inside and the leaf pattern on the outside. Okay, so let me do the next one. Same exact thing. On the blue side, it's going to be easier to see the score lines. Next to the taper, I fold in. Next to the taper, which is also at the base of the arrow, kind of, I fold in. Those 2 are easy. Then I have to look at that little rectangle that I stenciled on there because that helps me see where that 3rd little fold is. Basically now I have that little picture hanger. Those are our smalls. The smalls have a very short depth to them because this is the depth that they stick out from the back of the bench. So it's real subtle. That's how far your pillow is going to be from the back of the bench. Okay, now the bigger one is, it comes out a little further, so you can see that the little stenciling that I did was a little further out. I remember I was real sloppy with that. Okay, next to the arrow, where the taper ends, folds in, and then looking at that, for me, not particularly well drawn stenciling, I can find the other one. So you can see this one, also a picture hanger, but comes out quite a bit further from the thing. And if it helps you at all, these distances are going to be the same. The only distance difference is going to be how far out they stick from the bench. Well, hopefully that makes sense. A little hard to show here on the thing. See, but the height of them is the same in the folded position. All right, I'm sorry. That's the most stressful part of class today, is just doing those little extra pop-up platforms, but then once you get the hang of it, you are good. I wanted to show you that you do have a little diagram in here for future projects to remind you of that process. And here I've given you a little diagram of where we're going to attach them. Okay, so for future projects, you've got it there in your handout. But essentially you can put these little platforms anywhere along this first slat of the bench. And you've got 4 choices, right? Here, 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 and here. For my project today, it's completely up to you, but if you want it to match mine, I put a small in the first slot. We're not gluing anything yet. The larger one in the second slot. Okay. And then I skipped the third slot and put the last small one in this last spot. Okay. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm taking the arrow end, the arrow tab, the tab that has the arrow cut into it, sorry, gravity today. And I am going to hook it over those spots, okay? And I haven't glued them down yet, but basically it's going to be just the little arrow tab that's going to glue to the back of the bench in those 3 locations. Sometimes if we were doing this live where you all could talk to me, you know, not instead of recorded on YouTube, I would say my somewhat classic, we're watching, not doing. I like you all to watch me. If you're crafting with me, watch me do it first and then you do it. So here on the back of a small one, I'm looking for the arrow end. So that's the one that has the arrow cut into it. And on the back of just that arrow tab, I'm going to put a strong adhesive. All right, so it's, when you're looking at your picture hanger, it's just the arrow tab. It's just this outside tapered tab that has the glue behind it. And then I just have to hook it behind this first section of the bench so that the fold that's next to the arrow tab lines up with that edge of the bench and that this little top part can come forward. So let me show you on the back, all right? Right there. See, I just glued the arrow tab to the back of the bench so that you've got the top section is coming forward and you've got the long section here and then you've got your tab on the other end. Okay? So that's step 1. And then to connect the other end, it's usually just good to do that flat. So if you just flatten out your bench completely and flatten out your platform completely, you'll see that the other tapered tab will just hook right across that first section of the bench. See how it just spans that distance right there? And you glue that other tapered tab to the back of the bench right there. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to add a little glue to that tapered tab. Okay, and then fold it over and onto the back of the bench. Now, if you're using glue, like me, you have to be a little, you know, careful as you pull things and things. We're on pattern paper here, and glue has a tendency to squish out, so just make sure as you start to fold your bench into that closed position that your picture hanger, that your extra platform hasn't, like the glue hasn't squished out and it had it stuck down on the front right here, for instance. So let's see how the finished, can you see that? How it makes that, oh, that's a good angle right there. See, so we have tapered tab on the back, tapered tab on the back, and then it makes that little small platform coming forward in the bench. Okay, this is the hardest it's ever going to be. I'm going to give you a little pep talk. Next time you do it, even though you'll be like, oh, I remember that being really hard last time, you'll have the memory of it and you'll find that it's actually easier. In fact, you may find it's easier just going across the bench. Now I'm going to go with a large one. So my adhesive's going on the back of the arrow, little tapered tab. Okay. Then I'm going to hook it into the second section. Now where along the second section, it doesn't matter because you can always adjust the pillow location on the platform. So it doesn't, you know, anywhere along there is fine. Okay, so here's what I've done so far. Put the tapered tab back here. All right, and it's the larger one. But essentially it works exactly the same as the small one. The only difference you're going to see is as you flatten it, instead of the tapered tab reaching to the first slat, on the large one, it's going to reach to the second slat. So see how the tapered tab will actually fit, hook behind there, and attach to the bench on the second slat this time. All right, so I need to just turn it over, keep everything nice and flat, add my adhesive to the back of that little tapered tab, fold it over, press it into the adhesive, or to the back of the bench. Well, that's a really good one. You can see it there. White against green. All right. Then because I'm using glue, I'm going to be pretty careful as I fold my bench to make sure that it is coming forward as a platform like you see there. And it's not that it's inverted right there where it's, it accidentally got stuck down to the bench on the front, or over here, same thing. You should see it coming straight out from the bench to make a little platform. We're looking at this one right here, and then that one back there, and that's the arm of the bench back there. See? Everything will be in a line. And then you've got one more small one to do. So I skipped this third section and I went to the fourth section for my other small one. And of course, with you all crafting along with me, and me telling you watching, not doing, I may be going a little fast for you. So I'm going to get my third one on. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to catch up, okay? All right, so I've got glue on the back of my tapered tab with the arrow on it. In this fourth section, I'm going to hook it over the bench and press the tapered tab to the back of the bench. Okay, so it's right there. Then, making sure that I haven't accidentally pinned it down on the front or anything, that's just the tapered tab that's attached, I'm going to flatten everything so that I can hook the other tapered tab through the first section of the bench, because this is a small one, and glue it down on the back. So keeping everything nice and flat, a little glue on the back of that tapered tab, hook it over and onto the back. Okay. Let's show you from the side there. You see? I'm going to just hold this for a second, give you a chance to do it. You can look up at your screen occasionally and see if yours is looking like mine. Okay, all right. I'm assuming everybody's kind of got their bench put together and it should be looking like this. Well done, everyone. I'm going to assume you did great on that. Okay, we're going to open up this card and we're going to get the bench attached to the card. Now, this is a spot where you may want to use your ruler just because we're trying to cram two street lanterns in next to that bench, and so having the bench centered will really make it a lot easier for you to get a street lantern in on both sides. So my suggestion is actually to figure out where the center of this panel is so that you can put the center of the bench on that pencil line and make sure that you have it perfectly centered. So let me take my ruler here and remind myself that this panel, yeah, this is a 6-inch panel, the whole thing, like from ginger to ginger. So I want to go to 3 inches here. Where am I going to put my pencil line? I'll just put it on the fold. I mean, you could always go in there later and erase it if that bugged you, but it's going to be up behind the bench, and I'm not going to let it bug me. Okay, so then now what we're going to do is we're going to actually flatten the bench out completely. Let's get it all the way out to where on the bench itself you don't even have your tabs tucked under, so your tabs are out. Okay, and we're going to flatten it to where we can get the center. See, I even inverted my arms of my bench again so that they're valleys again, and I can slide that along until the center of my bench is right over my pencil line. Okay, and I want to make sure that the fold is in the fold. All right, and then here, what I like to do is just, I mean, I'm pressing right here so that it doesn't move, that it stays nice and straight and fold in the fold, okay? And what I want to do is add my adhesive just to those upper 2 tabs. Okay, now you could use a little mini glue dot if you're more of a glue dot person. You can spread out the glue with your fingers if you don't want it to, squish out. But the important thing is that as you kick those tabs under and glue them to the yellow card, that we keep the bench nice and flat, and you want it straight and you want the fold right in the fold. So see, I'm not letting it move, but I'm flattening it so that as I kick this under, press it to the card, and this one under, and press it to the card, I still have a nice straight bunch with the fold in the fold. All right, and then let me show you, because I can lift that up and show you what I did. See, I've had both of those tabs now in the completely flat position. They are attached, and boy, my center of my bench is going right across the fold of the card. Okay, top two. I don't know how long that's going to take you to do it. I can't see you. I can't see you, my students. So I'm going to flip this around then. Okay. All right, then I'm going to keep everything flat. It's going to be easier now. It's not going to slide on me now because of course I have these two attached. And I'm going to keep everything nice and flat. Let me throw a piece of paper under here so you can see. All right, obviously I won't do that. I don't want to attach it to the paper. I want to attach it to my card. But so essentially where I'm looking to do is add the adhesive to these and kick them under to the card, okay? Just like we did at the top. So that can be glue or that could be a mini glue dot. If you're using glue like me and you don't mind rubbing your fingers to get the adhesive off, you can definitely, and then I just go like this. What I should do is have like some baby wipes or something sitting right here to wipe my fingers on, but I rarely do. Okay, so now I've got glue on the top of my tabs. I'm going to keep everything nice and flat. I'm going to kick those under and attach them to the card. So assembly on the garden bench, looks a little crooked, is it's real simple, you know, because you can do it in that flat position. All right, now resist the urge to immediately start closing your card because we've got to tell, we've flattened it. We've got to make sure that the bench remembers that the arms come forward. Essentially what you want to make sure, just like we had to make sure with the tabs, that we don't accidentally pin the top part of our bench leg down because maybe the glue squished out or something. So you should be able to, don't fold anything yet, but you should be able to get between the tab, you know, it needs to come straight out in the air right from where that tab is. So if you have this front part of the bench leg tacked down accidentally, get in there and kind of loosen it. Same thing up here, see? It should come straight out from the fold line out in the air. Make sure that your little bench legs or your arm rests are coming out as a mountain. Let's look from the side here. See, I have all those lovely back and forth folds. Once you have them all going back and forth, then you should be able to just close that card up and you will have a beautiful pop-up bench with 3 little extra platforms behind it. So I can make it, you can see. See that? Okay, so see it comes straight out from the tab, straight up from the tab there. All right, well done, my students. I'm feeling the energy of the room that you all were very successful with that. And if you weren't, I mean, if you just made a mess of your bench, you have all that leftover material, you know? It's not like you can't rip a bench out of a card because even if it tears your paper right where your tabs are, you're going to put another tab right over the top of that location anyway, right? So it's not like you couldn't salvage the rest of this card if you somehow managed to mess up your bench. Cut it again, and you know what? If the pattern paper felt too thin for you or you had a hard time seeing the folds, pick any of these colors, go to your scrap bin, pick any of these colors of cardstock and do it out of a solid cardstock instead. Smooth would be better than textured. Textured, it's hard to see the folds. Smooth cardstock of any of these colors. Brown, one brown bench, perfect. All right, well done you all, well done. With your first pop-up is in the card. Okay, I'm going to kind of assume people are ready to move on. Let's go ahead and work on our other pop-ups, which are our street lanterns. And what's really cool is you're going to learn how to do the street lantern on this card, and then we're going to do it again on the second card, so you'll be really proficient with that one. So street lantern die set is a fun one. It's one of the new ones because it really is kind of a hybrid die, and what I mean by that is you really can use it flat. It looks gorgeous flat on the fronts of cards or in scrapbook layouts or whatever. And there's different ways you can combine the pieces. And then when you want to, you do have that little simple pop-up platform that looks like a picture hanger, like the one we just did for the bench, but a little bit bigger, and to make it into a pop-up. Okay, so let's find those first. All right, that's these here. All right, we cut them out of ginger cardstock. They are going to be so similar to the ones you just did for the bench. Where it folds, you got 3 folds in each one. You've got the tapered tab that's below the arrow. You have the other end where the taper ends. And then where the one is somewhere along there is not in the center. It's kind of like what we did with the larger picture hanger with the bench. See, it's not centered. When you flatten it in the center fold, you'll see that the arrow is sticking out quite a bit further than the short one. So it's going to be a picture hanger that looks like this. All right, now, even though we have smooth cardstock, I am going to suggest that you reverse your folds, because right now if we were to glue this in the card, you would actually see your arrow back here behind your pop-up, right? But if we reverse the folds, then the arrow will be glued down. So we're going to reverse all 3 of the folds so that it's the same shape, but now the arrow is underneath. So when we glue it into the card, you won't see the arrow. So for this one, since we did the stenciling, I do suggest that we reverse the folds. But it's always easier to fold towards the thing first, right? So I put my thumbnail in and I fold towards, go to the next one, fold. You can see how easy it is to see the folds on a smooth cardstock too. You know, say it's easy. It sort of depends on your machine too. Some people's machines don't have a lot of pressure, and if you ever find that your score lines are really difficult to see, you just need an extra little piece of paper, just text weight paper when you're die cutting that die, just to put a little extra pressure against the fold so that they press into the cardstock a little bit more. That could be a function of the rollers in your machine maybe getting a little worn out, or your cutting pads being worn out, or maybe your machine just has never had as much pressure as somebody else's machine. It's okay. It's always fixable with a little shim. Okay, so we have our 2 little picture hangers to hold our street lanterns. We don't have street lanterns yet, so let's just set those aside, and let's start digging out the pieces that we need for our street lantern. So you've got gunmetal here. Then you have, you know, it comes with the pole top attached. There are times when you may end up just wanting to use this as a pole and not as a lantern. So you see you've got that really pretty decorative top, because there are times when you may put it on a project and not want to have a lantern top at all. So it comes with the decorative finial sort of already on the pole. And then when you want to change it out for a street lantern, you cut the decorative finial off and you put the street lantern on instead. I also had you cut the street lanterns out of the brown color. You should have vellum for your slight little emergency, y'all. I can't find my other brown street lantern. Okay, instantaneously back. Beautiful of pausing recordings. Okay, I found all the pieces for my street lantern. So we've got gunmetal poles, gunmetal lanterns. You should have 2 brown lanterns to go on the back. You've got 2 vellum bells, then you've got 2 yellow light bulbs. You probably have 3 because it cuts 3 at a time. You only need 2. And then you have 2 wreaths and 2 bows. All right, so let's start by cutting the decorative finial top off of our street lantern. So what I like to do is you've got, you know, this first bump is actually part of the finial top. It's the second bump. Just right above it, there's actually a little score line in the piece that you can see. And you're just going to cut it there and throw that away unless you have something interesting you think you can do with it. I don't know, what could that piece be? Like a little meeple? I don't know if you're doing a game night card. Could you do a little meeple? Okay, so then I'm going to do the same thing with the second one. So whenever you want to change into a street lantern, then you cut off the finial top. Now, you have another thing to cut off for these ones. So we're going to use them whole in the second card. In the second card, you're going to get to assemble them with the pretty decorative sides, and they're going to hold swags and all that stuff. But for this one, we are trying to cram 2 street lanterns in next to a garden bench in a 6-inch spot. So basically, there's just no spot for those pretty swirly arms at all. So the next cut we need to do is cut off the little swirly arms. Okay, I mean, I guess technically you could keep the one towards the inside if you think that would look good. I didn't even think about that, you know. I don't know, it might kind of be in the way though. All right, well, I leave it to you if you're making a creative choice, but for me, I'm taking both swirls off for these because of what we're trying to do with it. Okay. All right. All right, now we've got poles. All right, then what we're going to do is, well, you're going to make a choice. All right, so it is up to you on light bulbs as to whether light bulbs go in front of your vellum or behind your vellum. So some people like them to be kind of behind the glass, sort of, so the glass frosts them. I think the yellow is so light that I feel like the vellum over the top might make them really hard to see. So I'm choosing to have my vellum behind my light bulbs. Okay, so I'm going to teach it that way. But maybe in a future card, since you own this die, you could try it with your vellum. You know, if you wanted your vellum on in front of the light bulb, then you'd have to put your vellum on first. See, here I'm saying, have a quick stick handy, and then I'm not using it. if you were to put your vellum on, don't do this, but if you were to put your vellum on first, then you could glue your light bulb behind it and the vellum would frost it, which doesn't look bad, okay? If you want to do it like me, then you actually put your light bulb on first. So that means a little adhesive at the base of the light bulb, and then it's going to glue right behind the little light bulb holder on your gunmetal lantern. So this is the pretty one, it's going to be in front, so like this, see? And then you're going to do it again. So let's see. Put some glue on my little light bulb stem. Get it up behind there. Like this. Okay, excellent. Then what we're going to do is glue, we're going to turn this around now so we can put glue all the way around the perimeter of the opening. Okay, and even behind the light bulb itself if you're doing it like me where the vellum's going behind. All right, then you pick up one of your vellum bells and it's just going to fit behind there perfectly. Okay. All right, so then we're going to stop here with this one and do the same to the other. So turn around, get the adhesive behind the light bulb and around the perimeter of the opening, and then the other vellum bell is going to go into that exposed adhesive. Okay. Okay, so we are now ready to put these pretty lanterns, which are just still on the back, they just like that. We're going to put those to the top of our pole. So what I like to do is just use adhesive behind the little ball area at the bottom of the lantern, and then I like to go in the front with that. Now, I mean, that's kind of a personal preference. I've seen some students prefer to put the adhesive on the top of the ball and then put it to the back of the little pole. It's just kind of how you want it to look. But I will tell you, for this one, we have a bow that's going in that area later, so it doesn't really much matter. So you almost might as well just do it this way where it's easier to glue the white side of the gunmetal. Well, I guess you're white to gunmetal regardless, but anyway. So now we've got the lantern put on the pole. And then we're going to do that again for the second one. So just everything we do for one, we're repeating for the other. Glue on the little ball area. I might spread that out a little bit. Well, I was a little sloppy in my first one. But again, the bow is going to solve all problems there. Alrighty, now the reason we have a second lantern, the ones that we cut out of the brown, is only because the gunmetal is white on the back, right? And this is a top fold card. So as you open it, it was kind of glaring white back there when I left it white. So I decided to just, you know, have the back of the lantern be the brown color instead of just the white and the edge of the vellum and everything. And it kind of cleans everything up a little bit too. So then you can just take the brown one now and glue it behind the lantern to sort of clean that up. And it'll also make it to where the pole is then sandwiched between the two lanterns, so that will help with the durability of it in the finished pop-up. So, and the lantern itself is a mirror image, so it doesn't much matter which side you put the adhesive on the brown one. It'll fit behind there, I guess is what I'm saying. Whether you're putting the adhesive on the textured side or the non-textured side doesn't really much matter. It's more just about the color. Changing the color to be brown instead of white on the back. Okay, so there's the first one. And now we'll do that again with the second one. I actually wasn't able to locate my second brown lantern. I don't know what I did with it. So I just quickly cut one with some scraps. So this is actually even a different brown. I don't know if that would be very visible on the video, but just in case some really sharp eyes catch me on that. This one doesn't have texture on it because it's just, I did briefly consider when I couldn't find that other lantern, I thought about just cutting it out of the middle of this piece because it's going to have the white one over the top and you'd never know. So that's always an option too if you really, You know, you need to capture a little bit of some color for a small piece that you ran out of. If you have anything like that where you're, you know, all that space in the middle is wasted anyway. Okay, so now we have our poles that look like this. This is a good time for us to get the wreaths on. So let's talk about the wreath that comes in the street lantern set. It's actually not perfectly round. If you'll notice, you have a way to put it where it's wider, or you have a way to put it where it's taller. And for this one, we're trying to cram these wreaths in. I mean, we got very small space. So what we really want is we want to orient them so they're tall. They're you know, an O like this versus like this. That makes sense. All right, so that's first things first. Then we're going to do is we're going to slide them. We're going to put a pole through the wreath, bring it up the pole, and glue it in that vertical position so that it, you know, hanging behind the pole. So the place that we can put the adhesive is back here. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion here for location. On my original, I actually glued the wreath just right behind here where the base of the light bulb is, and you can see, oh, it's kind of crowding my bench. I mean, it works, but it makes a noise, you know, because of that wreath crowding my bench. If I had just moved the wreath up a little higher, then I wouldn't have to worry about this clearance at all. So my suggestion to you is do yours better than me, which is actually take your wreath up a little higher. You know, I mean, I think it's actually kind of cool that you get to see through the vellum, you know, sort of a little bit of the wreath. It really enhances the idea that that's glass, and it'll just really help with the operation. So you can have it low if you want like this and deal with it, because mine works. But if you don't mind having it a little higher, I think that you'll prefer it. So once I decide on a position, then I can go in there and add adhesive basically behind there where the wreath is going to touch it, and then press it too. Okay. Now I have that on there, and then I can put that bow decoratively on there. And of course now I'm trying to attach Miri Sparkle to the gunmetal with glue, so I take a second to let it set up. All right, so there's number one, and then I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to make this into a vertical more than a horizontal, so it's a tall wreath. Then I'm going to slide the pole through it, bring it up here, put my adhesive behind the base of the light bulb and maybe a little bit into the light bulb like this. I'm going to press my wreath to that. I mean, another spot of adhesive would be right under here if you felt it needed more. I only use it on the back, but if you felt it needed more, you have that location. And then the Miri Sparkle wreath on the front, kind of at the base right here. All right, here we go. 2 street lanterns ready for the card. Well, slightly ready. They're not quite ready yet because they're a little too tall to fit in this card, so we have to shorten them. All right, so first things first is we have to figure out where we need to put our pop-up platforms to hold the lanterns so that they're in far enough to be hidden by the card. So we can use the actual lantern to figure that out, right? Because in the closed position, we want to make sure that they stay in the card, right? So, and it doesn't really matter where, you know, we haven't shortened this lantern yet, so even if you want to go all the way up like this, just choose a location where both the side of the lantern and the side of the wreath are going to be within the card. Okay, and just barely, because again, we don't want to crowd the bench with the wreath and stuff, so we're really kind of hidden. You can see it's pretty well centered there for me. And I'm just going to give myself a little pencil line. All right, so let me show you that real close. So see down here on the fold, I just gave myself a little pencil line, and I picked a spot. We haven't shortened the wreath yet, but the street lantern yet, but I'm choosing a spot where these just barely stay in the card on the side. All right. Then I'm going to do the same with this one over here. And I am going to switch it because I could have that wreath rotated a little bit differently. So I am going to try and remember this is my right side and this is my left side, since I'm using these as a guide. All right, so somewhere like that. And when I put the pencil on, I'm just putting it right in the middle of the pole, you know, on the fold of the card, like that. Okay. All right, so right side, left side. Then let's grab our platforms, and now we're going to glue those in. Now the first thing we're going to glue in is the arrow tab. So the one where you stenciled the arrow, that tapered tab. If you want to watch me do it first, I'm going to put my adhesive all over that arrow. Well, the whole tab that has the arrow, I guess, and I'll spread mine out so I have a little loosey-goosey with my glue. All right, and what I want is this end right here to butt up to the fold on the, and I'm gluing to the leaf paper side, but right up to the fold. So not to the edge of the paper, but actually to the fold of the card, and it's the end of the platform. So if I even want to straighten it completely out, make sure I'm on camera here, straighten it completely out, then I can make sure that it looks like it's straight. But let's take a look, see at what I've done. I've glued the end of the arrow tab, not the fold of the arrow tab, that's out here, but the end of the arrow tab is right in the fold, centered on my pencil line, so that the end is butted right up next to the fold. Okay. All right, so go ahead and do that. And then just go ahead and do the second one too. So it's going to be the arrow tab that gets the adhesive. Okay. Spread out my adhesive a little bit. Then the end of that arrow tab is going to go right centered on my pencil line with the end right in the fold of the card. And I'm looking at my flattened platform and making sure that it looks real straight in conjunction with this. Now I have them both on there. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to, in the flat position, figure out where this is in the flat position, and then we'll put adhesive on the other tab. So you've got 3 choices of fold lines, right? If I fold it on the first one, well, that's not the right one because I have all of this stuff over here. If I fold it on the second one, that's what I want because I want 2 panels down and 2 panels up. Okay, if I fold it on the third one, I only have 1 panel up and 3 panels down. I want the second one so that it's 2 panels up, 2 panels down. Let's see, throw a piece of paper in there. See that? 2 panels. 2 panels up, 2 panels down. Then the adhesive only goes on the tapered tab. So just the one out on the, that has the taper to it. Stop at the fold line like this. See that? Okay, so just the tapered tab. So then I keep, and you know what, I'm going to do them both at the same time. So over here, 2 panels up, 2 panels down, adhesive on the tapered tab. Okay, then I'm going to keep those both nice and flat, and I'm going to close the top of the card against the exposed adhesive. So I'm not bringing them up because I may not choose the right location. It's better to let the card tell you in the flat position where they need to be attached. Okay. And since I used glue, I'm going to just go slowly as I open it. What it did is it attached the tab up here and here in the right position so that it makes that same little box platform that we're used to seeing, the same one that's inside the bench. Okay. So that's how, and I mean, you can even flatten your card out and give it a little push if you need to, but there we go. We now have, look at all those platforms we get to decorate, and that's so cool. All right, this is where we have to figure out how short to make the lantern because it's going to attach here, so the flat position is laying down flat in front of that thing, and look at how much lantern is sticking out of the card. So this is how much I have to take off, essentially. So one way, there's a couple, I think in the handout I tell you there's about 3.5 inches from here to here. It's a little bit less than 3.5 inches. So here's what you do. You take your milk jug off the bottom of your lantern. So you see you've got the wider part and then you've got this little bump. And if you cut right above the little bump, then that looks like a little milk jug, right? And then you're just going to slide that milk jug up until you get the right overall height to fit in this spot. So one way to do that, okay, up to you, but one way to do that is, I'm just trying to think if I could put something under there, but I guess I can't. All right, so you could take your milk jug and you could set it down face down next to the platform where it's going to go. So here's my milk jug sitting face down, right? Then I can take the rest of my lantern and I can put it over the top of that milk jug and look out here and make sure that I'm staying in the card. And you probably want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room on that, you know, like be down a little bit from the edge, not right on the edge, because once we glue it to this, it may shift up a little bit because of the thickness. Okay, so then what I can do is I can add some adhesive up the middle of my milk jug. Actually, let me show you that closer. Okay, so I've got adhesive up the middle of the milk jug. I might spread that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to lay that milk jug down in front of my platform, and I'm basically using the card to figure out how tall I can make my overall street lantern and keep it in the card. Okay, and I want to make sure that so let me show you what mine ended up being. Yours will probably be very similar. See if you can see how much overlap there is. See, it's almost all the way to the bottom. So we took away a lot of pole. But then now, that's our cute little shortened street lantern. Okay. Now, how do we attach it? Again, it's easier to do it in that flat position like this. Well, is it? I don't know. Basically, we're going to put adhesive on the front of this platform. Like that, so not on the top, but just on the front. And then we're going to press, I think it's easier to do it this way, our street lantern to it. I still ended up with my wreath a little bit in my bench, but I think it's going to be fine. And if at worst, I just have to trim my wreath a little bit. Okay. All right, let's take a look-see. Ooh, mine's not quite in the card. If I moved it over just a little bit, it would be. Oops, I'm going to move mine over just a little bit. Try and keep it in the card. At worst, I can always do a little trimming, a little selective trimming on my wreath, or I could live with it. This is very, very close. I mean, super close. It's probably, yeah, mine's in now. It could be that it's hitting the bench at just such a way that it's, see, I've got this one little protruding part of my wreath that's hitting my bench. And my favorite way to solve a problem like that, if it is a problem, is just to snip that little bit of wreath off. Who's ever going to know, y'all? Who's ever going to look at that wreath and go, it feels like that bump has been smoothed? No one. The answer is no one. And if they did, they are not the recipient for this card. Oh, I did it. I did it. I mean, a little teeny bit. Teeny. Oh, I see what I did. Look, y'all, I'm not straight with my lantern coming out of my milk jug. That's why. See, I'm crooked this way. That's why this little point is sticking out for me. But look at how little it is. No one's ever going to see that. That's not going to end my life. Okay, so when you go to do your second street lantern, learn from me. Really pay attention to the straightness of the pole. If you have to be crooked, boy, I would have been much better to be crooked that way, right? Because it would have gone into the thing a little bit. I don't really think I can move it, so I'm not going to. This is going to be fine. This is fine by me. Or I could trim just a smidge off the lantern, or I could see if I could rotate it just a bit. Ooh, that worked. Okay, well there you go. All right, so let's do the other one. So same thing. First thing I do is I cut at the top of my milk jug. I'm going to see if I can do a better job on my own card this time. All right, milk jug is going to sit in front of the platform so that I can see how much overlap I need on my pole to keep it within the card. And you know, guess what? It's just the same as before. So adhesive up the middle of the milk jug. Ooh, sorry, really should put my, that's one thing about having your glue out. I mean, I'm not being very disciplined about putting it back in my paper towel in between, which I should be. Okay, so I've got adhesive up the middle of my milk jug. I remember from my first one how much overlap, which is almost all the way to the bottom, but just a little bit less than straight up from the bottom. And this time I'm going to really pay attention to try and make sure it's straight. Or if it's going to be crooked, I need to make it crooked this way. So So look how into the card. All right, so here's my cute little shortened street lantern. So now some adhesive right here on the front of this. All right, and then press my lantern to it. And okay, how do we do? Oh, goodness. Making it straight. Seems to be the, oh, I did it. Okay. That's what's kind of nice about using glue too is, yeah, you can move it a little bit. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay, look at that. Cute, cute, cute. Okay, I am sure I have used probably well more than an hour already. This one is the longer card of the two, but I probably do need to speed things up. So I'm supposed to keep this within 2 hours. So let's make some gnomes. Alrighty. So our tiny gnome set, cutest little set. You can use that different ways you can assemble your tiny gnomes. But let's get out all our pieces. Alright, so we have the bodies. We have an orange body for the bearded, nope, yellow for the bearded gnome, orange for the braided gnome for the inside. Okay, so the girl gets the orange body. She's going to get our brown braids. Okay, she's going to have little bows. I think he gets a bow too. Yeah, he gets a bow. The third bow is going to be his little bow tie. And then we've got beard, mustache. He gets the brown hat. She gets the maroon hat, unless you're making a creative choice. Then we have the self-adhesive hands, nose, and head. And then we also did one set that didn't have any adhesive, and the only piece you need from that one that has no adhesive on the back is the extra head, and that's for her because she cannot have a sticky head because she's going to be you know, you have to be able to get behind, you know, she's going to be suspended. Oh my bad, she actually gets little green bows, and these little maroon ones were extra. Good thing I looked at my card. Okay, so she's going to get green hair bows. All right, and she's going to hold a pie. Now let's see which pie. I had her holding the one that had the gray pie tin. Oh, I did an awful job with my fussy cutting. Don't look too close at mine. And then let's see, where's the heart go? Oh, the heart goes on the other pie. Alrighty, and then we've got pillows. Okay, so let's see, we have shoes. Should have 2 pairs of shoes, shouldn't we? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, another pair of shoes. So he has the brown shoes and he has the tan shoes and she has the brown shoes. Okay, I think we're ready. All right, first things first, let's work on her. All right, so I would suggest your sticky head first. Okay, so if you can get that separated from the backing sheet, whatever tape you used. Sticky head, and let's just stick that at the top of her body. Let me see if I can get her on screen for you so you can see. So you may have just heard the doorbell. Normally that would send my dogs through the roof, but they are old and they are both kind of going deaf. And so they don't hear the doorbell anymore, which is lovely because then you guys don't have to hear 2 insane dogs because somebody dropped off a package. All right, for her, since we don't want her head to be sticky, take the one that doesn't have adhesive on the back and put that into that leftover adhesive so that she does not have a sticky head anymore. Okay, so we just used the head to stick to the body, then we put the other head behind it. So now nothing's sticky on her. Okay, so for braids, now this is up to you, but especially since she's going to hold a pie, I'm trying to find a spot where I can put this. How about like that? Okay, because she's going to hold a pie, I like to put the braids on so that they kind of go along the edge of her body, so they kind of come out like this. I mean, that's completely up to you, but I choose them so that the little pigtail is flaring out, and I am just going to attach them to her head with some adhesive, basically at her ears. So let me show real close to the camera. So we have adhesive on the ear, essentially, and then I like to put the braid so that it's kind of traveling down in line with her body. And you may find other projects, since this is your die, you're going to use this a lot, you may find other projects where you want her to be thinner and you would bring the braids in like this, or, you know, you can always adjust it. But for this one, so we can see the pie that she's holding, I like to do it something like this. Okay. She's going to get little green hair bows right at the little pinch point of her pigtails. Use my quick stick for that. Right. And then she has the maroon hat. So this is the one that we did the emboss feature on, so that you actually have a little raised emboss feature. And where you put the hat is kind of where you think it looks best on the braids, right? So you definitely want it to kind of cover the end of the braids so it doesn't look abrupt. But the angle of it and such, I mean, like if you wanted it a little tilted maybe, I think I might tilt mine a little to the right, just because that seemed like a good spot for it. Right? And then I would use a self-adhesive nose for her, but this is the one spot where I would hit it, if you've got a little ink, hit that little self-adhesive nose with just a little brown ink around the edges, if you like that look, because it'll give it some distinguishing from the back, anyway, from the front of her face. Okay, and then what I like to do is have that nose overlap her hat just a little bit, because the idea is that the hat is pulled down over her eyes. Uh-oh. Oh, I see. I didn't get all of the adhesive backing off of mine. That's why it's not sticking. What's this? All right. See how that's coming together? Cute, cute, cute. All right, so she's going to get the dark brown shoes, correct? So the little shoes are in a set, and I always seem to do this. I just throw a little bit of adhesive like in a line across the bottom of the gnome, and I forget that there's that divot in between the shoes, right? So I've started to become better about actually putting my adhesive on the top of the two shoes instead of just right across the bottom of the body, so that I don't always end up, I mean, luckily the glue dries clear, but I seem to always do it with the tiny gnomes, that I end up with, you know, adhesive right between the shoes, because I just put like a straight line across the bottom. Or if you remember to do dot dot, that works too. Okay, and then she is going to hold a pie, so we're going to put the pie on her body first, and then we'll put her little hands holding the pie. So some adhesive on that. I'm going to tuck it behind the braids. And I guess, what did I do on my original? It's a little bit at an angle. I don't know. I think that's just your choice, what you think looks best. And then the little self-adhesive hands can go on like they're holding the pie. Okay, and I think the way that looks the best is if you have thumbs up, right? So she's holding it like this in her hand. And there she is. She is ready now to go in the card. Now I'm going to leave it to you, this is artist choice, on how you decorate your three platforms, whether you stick with the same as the original, or I definitely seen some students prefer to have their gnome on the most forward platform and their two pillows on the side. I had you die cut two pillows using the garden bench. That does kind of look good with a little brown ink around the fringe. That's up to you. I had that perfectly, didn't I? Right, and then, so if you wanted to match mine, which I guess I'm just going to stick with what I did before, I put the acorn pillow on this platform, and what's nice about you having the slats in the bench is that it can go at any angle, because it can actually go through the slat of the bench, you know, if you want to put it at a little angle. So what do? You throw your adhesive, put your adhesive on the front of the platform, just like we did with the street lantern. And then you set a pillow against that adhesive. I'm going to do this kind of outward angle on my acorn pillow. So it's sitting on there right now. It's not really pressed down because I can't really press it. I've got a popped up pop-up. You know what I mean? If I press it, I'm probably going to rip something. So what's best is to close the card, and you can always give it a press in the closed position. See? And then that'll attach it to that platform. All right, so then I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to put my adhesive on the front of the platform. And look at my original here. And I did the 3 little thingies, and I kind of went a little outward angle like that. And then again, close the card, give it a good press. Okay. And then she's going to go on this platform right here. Once again, get her set on the platform and then close the card. Ooh, you know what? Does she fit if you put her on the large platform? Look, mine's close to the edge. I don't know if you have the luxury to put her on the upper platform. Her head might stick out if you do her hat. So, I don't know. Okay. Then the last thing for the inside of the card is the white one over the brown one. Okay. Then the other fussy cut pie. And then the little heart that we cut out of the tiny gnomes at the top of the pie. And then that can go anywhere you want it to go. On the inside of the card is a place to write your personal greeting. So I went over here on the left and kind of just had an equal border here. And ooh, sorry. Well, it could go at a fun little angle too. Doesn't have to be straight. Alrighty. You can definitely tell I'm speeding up, aren't you? I'm looking at the timer on my camera going, oh my goodness, I don't even know how much time I've used, but I know it's, because I broke a couple times, so it doesn't tell me a cumulative total. But I know I'm going to have to go faster on that second card. So, a little brown ink on the grass pieces that come in the garden bench set. Okay. And then where I put these is on the legs of the bench, okay? So for that, just essentially in the center 2 blades of grass, I put my adhesive, and then I'll go in and just pinch that to the bottom of the bench pole, okay? And then it should just collapse down with the bench. So middle 2 things of grass. All right. Okay, we have the inside of the card done. Well done. Well done. Okay, outside of the card, I'm going to go pretty fast here to get this one done so we can move on to the second card. But now if I go too fast for you, it's okay. Just come back to it. You know what I mean? Just do it later if it's too fast. Okay, for a guy gnome, or a gnome with a beard, I should say, you don't have to attach the head to the body because you can attach the beard to the body. So it's actually with a guy gnome easier to just start with the head, okay, and then put the beard on next. All right. So, and I wonder if I want a little, I might want a little brown on the edge of that. Mine's a little light. Okay. So beard at the base of the head, like this. All right. Then mustache goes next, just above the beard. Okay. Of course, I didn't brush any ink on that one. It'll be okay. All right. And then I do hat. So for a bearded and mustached gnome, I just kind of bring the hat down to where it's over the ears, even if that may either butt up next to the mustache or it may leave a little bit of head showing, and either way is fine. Though in my case it left a little head showing. It just sort of depends on how far up you put your beard when you started. Then I would do the other self-adhesive nose. Once again, I maybe would brush it with a little ink around the edges to give it some contrast from the mustache. And then that's going to go in the center of the mustache so that it overlaps the hat as well. There's his little head. All right, so this is what I was saying now. See, his head doesn't have to attach to his body. You can control the height of the bearded gnome because you can just attach the beard to the body. And that gives you more room for there to be an acorn in his hands too. So I'm actually just going to attach the base point of the beard. So see, there's a fair distance between the head and the body, and I'm using the beard to span that gap. I may have made him a little too tall. No, he's about the same. I don't think there is a too tall situation on him. Okay, for him, you may want to brush some ink on his shoes. Kind of grunge him up a little bit there. Once again, I'm going to put the adhesive on the back of the top of the shoes instead of on him because I always forget and go straight across in a line. Trying to be better about it. Okay, he can have a little bow tie peeking through his beard, which is a cute look. So some adhesive somewhere in the center of his beard and then the bow pressed into it. And then he is going to hold an acorn. Now this was pre-cut for you out of our Autumn Elements die set. So this is the die set that we used to pre-cut the acorn and the pumpkin. This is our Autumn Elements die set. And so out of your pre-cuts, you are looking for the pumpkin, out of that really pretty kind of shiny orange. Then you've got a kind of crafter cream colored acorn, and then you've got the acorn top cut out of brown. Okay, so assembly on the acorn itself is just a little brown around the bottom portion. Since the top portion you don't really need to hit with too much ink because we're going to actually replace it with the top of the acorn. So what we do is if we have pre-cut anything for you in a class kit, then we still list it in the handout under supplies, but it just says pre-cut, and that way you know the item number and what was used in case you want to remake these and you don't have this die set. This might be a great little add-on for you to pick up from our website. Okay, so or from your favorite store. All right, so he's going to hold that acorn. So I'm going to, just like we did with the pie, I'm going to figure out a spot for that acorn to sit, and then I'm going to use the self-adhesive hands, just like we did with the pie, to kind of hold it. Something like this. Oh my goodness, isn't he the cutest? Now, I don't know that I said in the handout or today, did I tell you? A green marker for coloring pumpkin stems. So apparently I did tell you green marker, I just didn't do it myself. So green marker could work, or a little brown ink. It's not like you couldn't do this later, so because even after it's on the card. So if you have a green pen, maybe a Copic or some green ink or anything, you can just color the stem of the pumpkin. I just used whatever was closest that was green is what I used. Okay, and then for the front of the card, it is literally just a matter of putting your pumpkin and your gnome on in a location of your that pleases you. So I'll leave that to you. I'm going to put my pumpkin on first at a nice little angle. And then, oh, I still have the self-adhesive sticker part behind his head, so I can use that for some of my adhesive. Just taking off the liner. And I glued him down. Sometimes people ask, well, could I use a pop dot behind him? Sure, if you wanted to, you could use a pop dot. The only thing I say about adding pop dots to pop-ups is that you're adding to the overall thickness of the card. So if postage is an issue for you, I would probably leave him flat. If you don't mind if that puts your card over, a 1/4 of an inch and requires the extra ounce stamp, well then, if you want to pop him up, go ahead. All right, well done. Well done, my students, for our Happy Fall card. Now, something you may be noticing is this little location right here, it may feel a little weak to you. I mean, I think it's fine, but if you were worried about maybe it bending right here, you know, next to this, you could reinforce the back of your card with another piece of cardstock, maybe your leftover ginger or a piece of white. That would give you a place to write some more things on it, but that's completely optional. It's just whether or not you want to make this even more sturdy. It's also going to add to the weight, though. So I think this one is fine just the way it is. Okay, card number 2, and I am sorry, I had just a little hiccup there with the footage, so I kind of pulled this paper off so I could show it again. All right, card number 2. So we've got a top fold card. It's going to go a little faster because we've got street lanterns and gnomes, which are already familiar with how they operate and stuff. So we won't have to take quite as much time for this card, which is good because I used up a lot of the time in the first card. Okay, so step 1 that I'm sorry when I started that the camera didn't turn on correctly. So here's what I've done so far is I've just taken my top fold card and I've added the plaid paper to the bottom panel and then one of the snowflake papers to the upper panel. Those are the same size paper, so it doesn't matter which one you choose. The other one's going to be for the front of the card. So just glue those in centered into both those panels. Probably wasn't the smartest for me to rip those out of there. I got a little panicked, but okay, I think I fixed it. Okay, so get your paper inside your card there. That's step number 1. And we're going to focus on the inside of the card first, and the only reason for that is I think when I've taught a card like this before, we've done the front first, and then we do the inside, and then somebody inevitably has accidentally flipped their card over, and so like when they close it, then the back is on the front anyway. So it's just better if we do the inside first, and then we'll put the front on second. Okay, so to do that, we need to assemble some street lanterns and some tiny gnomes. So once you get your paper inside your card, you can set that aside, and then let's get out some street lanterns. So what we have 3 street lanterns that are in the gunmetal, only 2 in the gray, because we're only going to reinforce the street lanterns that are pop-ups. The one that ends up on the front of the card, it doesn't need anything gray behind it. Okay, so that'll just be because it's going to be glued flat to the card. Whereas these ones are full height street lanterns, and we not only want them to pop up themselves, but we want them to suspend the swag, and we want them to pull this whole business up too. So because of that, we're going to make those extra durable. All right. Okay, so this might be an opportunity for you to try that idea of having the light behind the vellum, if you like that look instead of in front. That's up to you. I like the lights to be real bright, so I'm going to stick with the, you know, light bulb and then vellum. But this is your card, not my card, so you can decide. Okay, so step 1 is going to be with our gunmetal lanterns. Oh goodness. Let's get the light bulb in. Okay, or for those of you who are doing vellum first, you put vellum first and then light bulb. All right, just like we did on the last card. That's not centered. Okay. On the back, you put your adhesive around the opening and up the center of the light bulb, and that's where you put your vellum bell. Goodness, I'm glad that mirror card, you can just scrape the glue right off of it. That was a little sloppy. Okay, do that 2 more times. 2 more times. Might as well just assembly line these. So the gunmetal with the light bulb and the vellum. Let's do gunmetal, light bulb, vellum. Or gunmetal, vellum, light bulb, if you're doing it your way. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and do number 3 as well, the one for the front of the card. Now if I'm faster than you are, and you're doing this with me, on the live class day. If you're going to shirk on the one for the front, right? In other words, just really focus on getting the ones for the inside done correctly, because you can always go back and make the one for the front. It's just decorative. It's not going to hold anything up if you didn't have that done. So try at least to get 2 of them done, kind of on pace with me. All right, now in all 3 lanterns, we're going to attach lantern tops to poles. This time the only thing we're cutting off of our gunmetal poles is going to be our decorative finial. We're going to leave the pretty swirls on all of them. And if you recall, the place where we cut it is not the first bump from the top, but the second bump where there's that little score line right above it. And we're going to take the decorative finial off on all 3 poles. Well, technically, I guess you could do it on all poles, even the gray ones, because we're going to use those. Yeah, let's just do all 5 poles. So the 3 gunmetal ones, okay, and then the 2 reinforcing gray ones. None of them need any decorative finials. Okay. Okay, then step 1 is going to be decorative gunmetal lanterns, just adhesive on the little ball portion at the bottom, and then attach those to the poles. So gunmetal to gunmetal now on all 3 of them. Okay, so the one for the front of the card, I always forget. You know, I always forget to, I should have put the wreath on before I put the lantern on so I didn't have to cut it, but it doesn't matter because it's easy to just cut it. So you just take your wreath, and this time it's the same wreath we used before. This time it doesn't matter which way it goes. This one's for the front of the card that's going to get the wreath, so it's whatever way you think looks best in terms of whether it's taller or wider. But what's really hard to do is to weave it on there and get it around the oh look, my thing fell off. I could just put it, if you hadn't put your top on yet, then you can set your wreath down in there before you put the top on, right? Like this. See, that's what I always try to remember to do and never do remember to do, right? And then put the thing on. But I'm going to assume that a lot of you probably do have this already attached and it doesn't just conveniently fall off for you at the right time. So I'm going to do it like you do, which is you have your street lantern and you want to get the wreath on. Well, then what you do is you figure out how you want it to hang, and then you just cut it in one spot in the back so that you can weave it on like this. Okay, so you don't have to remember to put the wreath on before you put the lantern top on. It's perfectly fine to do it that way instead. And then, you know, just make sure the seam is in the back. All right, like this, and then we cut a whole bunch of the bows out of red, I think more than we needed, because it cuts 2 at a time. So one of those bows, any of them. I put it at the bottom, you might try it at the top, it's up to you. Goodness. All right, I'll set that aside. All right, lanterns for the inside of the card, we're still going because we want to reinforce them. So we don't have to do any trimming or shortening or anything like that. We have a big enough card to put them in, which is nice. We're going to use them full height. But we are going to use the gray ones to make them stronger as well as not white on the back. So I think actually flipping these over in the idea of sort of sandwiching things as we go, let's go ahead and put the gray lanterns on first and then we'll put the poles on, and that way we're kind of making this reinforced sandwich as we go. So gray ones on the back lined up perfectly. Lining up is the tricky thing, apparently. Okay. Now you may be asking yourself, well, if I wanted to make this card again, do I always have to double up the street lantern? And the answer really is no. It's only because of the materials that I chose. I chose to use the gunmetal, which is, you can see, it's just a little flimsier, you know, than if I had used like a nice thick cardstock. And so if you're going to use something like that, then it's a good idea to double it for strength. But otherwise, just use a heavier cardstock to cut your street lantern, and then you don't have to double it. Okay, so I'm going to glue the gray ones behind now. And then because we do have a top fold card and the back of the gunmetal is white, I thought it would be nice to have the back be gray. Okay. There's one. And then this one. Okay, that cool swag that comes with the street lantern set, you cut that out of the green mirror card. It actually doesn't need adhesive when it's being attached through the swirls. You just take the sparkly side up on that outer one, and you go, you know, you kind of slide the sparkle along the swirl until the end is in. Same thing over here. So you take the sparkle side sort of along the swirl until it hooks in over here. And then just making sure every part of the swag is ahead of the street lantern except for the two ends which go through the swirls. And then that will hold it on. You do not have to use any adhesive, and you get that kind of cool dimension to it. All right, so I'm going to do that again with my second one. So once again, I take the sparkle side, and it's like I'm just tracing along the swirl until it hooks right in. All right, and then over here, I take the sparkle side, and I just go along the swirl until it hooks in on the other side. Okay. And then we're not going to worry about the one that's going to span between them. We'll put that in after we get everything into the card. But what we can do is put our little bows on. And we can put those bows even on the swag that isn't attached yet. So we can grab 3 of our red bows. Okay. And then, you know, this is just decorative, so wherever you think looks the nicest. And I'm going to go just here in the center somewhere of each swag. Like this. Okay. Thank you, dries clear glue, right? Especially against that mirror card. Okay, putting our street lanterns inside the card then. So let's open up the card, and then we're going to use the street lanterns in the flat position to figure out where our pop-up platforms need to go, because we want to keep the swag in the card, and we probably do want them pretty close to the edge, you know, where the swag just kind of barely stays in. Maybe the swag needs to be at the edge of the pattern paper or something. You can kind of check that you're not too far apart by seeing whether that looks like it'll span between them, and that looks like it'll work great. So then I'm just going to mark on my fold the middle of each one, just like we did with the other card. So I'm marking on the fold with a pencil the middle of where I want my little platform to go. Now there's an angle. I was going to say, where can you see the pencil lines? All right, so then with our platforms, we've done these before. These are our platforms from the street lantern. We did cut them out of pattern paper, so but I think it's still pretty easy to see where the folds are. You know, kind of lean them into the light a little bit if you need to see where they go. And once again, I think it's much easier to fold the folds towards the red because that's the side that you die cut into, but then you want to reverse them so that the arrow can be glued down and covered. So there's our little picture hanger. Okay, so let's just do all of them that way. So finding the 3 folds, folding them towards the red first, and then just reversing the folds. Okay. The reason we have four, or two sets of two, is because we're going to attach a second set of pop-ups to the front of the lanterns to extend out and animate our snowbank out here that our gnomes are going to sit against. So this one's kind of an extra technique in this one, showing how to use those pop-ups doubled up. Okay, and then reversing. Okay, and if you need a quick check, you know, you can just look at them and make sure they look like they're all the same, you know, maybe you can just throw them together and then you could see if one of your folds was like really far off, that you got it wrong. Find the correct one, but so you can see they're all the same. All right, and since they are all the same, it doesn't matter which two I pick to be the ones for my street, or to hold my street lanterns up. But just like we did before, it's going to be the arrow side that glues down on this side of the card where the end is butted right up into the fold. Okay, and then it's two up, two down, adhesive on the other end, close the card, right? Okay, so I'm about to demonstrate that. Okay, so my adhesive goes on my arrow, end of my pop-up. Spread that out a little bit. All right, then I want this end to go right kind of centered on my pencil line where the end is just butted right up to the fold of the card. See, I'm not going to the edge of the pattern paper, I'm going right into the fold of the card. If I lay this down, I can see that it's straight, especially because I have lines in my pattern paper that help me see that I've attached it nice and straight. Okay, then I'm going to grab another one. Put it over here on this side. Adhesive on the arrow. Okay. The end is going to go right to the fold of the card and centered on my pencil line. And then I can lay the thing down. And using my grid of my pattern paper can really help me make sure that I have it nice and straight. And it's just those arrow tabs that have been glued down so far. Okay, I know I'm going fast, I'm sorry. If I speed up too much for you, just watch and come back to it. All right, so two down, or if you're on the replay, you can just hit pause. Two up, right? So we fold it on the second fold so that we have two down, two up. And then the adhesive goes on the little outside tapered tab, red side. Spread that out a little bit. Okay, I'll show you. Remember, two up, two down. Okay, two up, two down. All right. Then I've got to hold these flat. This one looks like it's pretty crooked there. And close the card against that exposed adhesive. Okay. Oh, hey, while you're doing this, go like this. Front. That way you don't accidentally decorate the back. We're going to put pattern paper over the top of it anyway. That way you don't have to worry about it. Okay, open it up slowly to make sure that glue doesn't pop off. And there you have your two pop-up platforms for the street lanterns. Wonderful! Now, let's go ahead and put our street lanterns, the ones that have the swags, on our two platforms. If you recall, the way to do that is to put your adhesive on the front of the platform only. Okay, spread mine out a little bit. And then, ooh, drop my lantern. Get that street lantern base right onto that pop-up and give it a good pinch. And this is a good spot too. If you have any paper clips or I don't know, quilting clips or anything like that, those are always kind of nice for holding things on while they set up too. Or you can close the card and give it a really good press in the closed position. And I'm just taking a look to make sure that it doesn't stick out anywhere, which it doesn't. Okay, street lantern number one. Then this one, adhesive on the front. Okay, spread that out a little bit. Okay, and then press it on, close the card, give it a really good press. Lovely. Well, it just adds a little something to have those street lanterns kind of coming out of the front like that. All right, this is the spot where I mentioned earlier, 2 hours ago, that if you had something like a double-sided tape or a glue dot or something, that might be better for your second set of pop-ups because you're trying to glue them to the gunmetal. Okay, so we're gonna do this one a little bit differently. So we're not, even though you could, okay, so don't do anything. You could glue your arrow one down, butt it up now next to the bottom of the thing, 2 up, 2 down, get it on there, and it would be the same height, see, as the pop-up that you already put on. You basically just double it like this. Okay, I wanted to actually make it be longer and shorter, so I'm actually turning it around like so the box is going to attach like this. Oh well, sorry, like this instead. Sorry, like this. Okay. So that so it would work either way. But so what I mean by that is we're still attaching the arrow end. It's just that where we're attaching it is to the front of the street lantern. So with these ones, with our arrow end, if you do have either a tape or a couple mini glue dots, it'll just stick to the street lantern a little better, the gunmetal, than using your glue. If you don't, just use your glue and just plan on holding it until it sets up. Okay, so I'm doing mini glue dots, so I'm doing 2. Apparently 1 on my fingernails too. Okay, so glue dot. Just starting at the fold, my first glue dot, and then the second one. All right, so now I've got sticky arrow tabs, but they've got glue dots on them instead of glue. All right, and then now the end of the arrow, the arrow tab is going to actually stick to the front of the street lantern with the end at the bottom of the lantern. So see, I've stuck the arrow thing to the front. So this is the end of the arrow now. It's stuck to the front of the street lantern instead of to the card. So get in and put the other one on. Okay. So that's the arrow tapered tab attached then to the front of the street lantern. Okay, so this is where it gets a little fiddly because now you're trying to do the 2 up, 2 down thing, but you've got these attached to the front of a pop-up right now, right? Okay, so I think if you just lay them, if you lay your card like this, so your street lanterns are up, then you can do the 2 up, 2 down thing. Put your adhesive on these 2 tabs and close the card. And that can be glue now because we're going paper to paper, or it could be your glue dots again. But basically, on the tapered tab, we want these in the 2 up, 2 down position, like this. And then we've got to try and close the card this way so that it will attach them to the floor of the card in the right position. Okay, so that's a little fiddly, but worth it because look, now we've got, see what we've got there? Tall pop-up, shorter pop-up. So this one is shorter and comes out further. And you always have that option to use those little pop-ups that way. So if you're not attaching the street lantern and you just want to use them for something, you could put tall and then short, and then you'll have different lengths coming out. Okay, so now we can put anything to the front of this and it will also pop up with the card. So we're basically making a double tier pop-up, see? So what are we going to put on that? Well, funny you should ask. Where are our pre-cuts? Here they are. So this is something we pre-cut for you. This is our Nature Edges die set. I did grab that die set to show since it was a pre-cut. So this is our Nature Edges, and one of the edges that comes with that is a double stitched hill. So it's got the stitch marks on both sides of the cut. So what's nice about that is if you cut it right down the middle of a piece of paper like this, you actually get the pretty stitch marks on both sides. So all you have to do is finish out the cut to separate this into 2 hills. Okay, so now we've got 2 stitched hills, and you just get to pick your favorite. Whichever one you think will look best on the inside of the card. I mean, I think either of them would work. It's really up to you. The other one's going to go on the front of the card. So I guess I'll use this one. Okay. I mean, maybe, well, you could put them both on there and see which one you think. This one's actually a little taller. I might use this one because it kind of disguises the pop-up over there better. I don't know that yours is identical to mine because, you know, it sort of depends. You know, we obviously pre-die cut those and, you know, may not be right in the center or whatever, but whichever one you think looks best, either of them would be fine. And all you're going to do to attach that to these pop-ups is, once again, adhesive on the front of the pop-up. Okay. All right. And then if you can, go in there and just pinch it like we did, you know, with the street lantern. That would be the best. And then I just did it, you know, it should be about even with your pattern paper, depending on how well you cut it. I didn't cut mine super well, I can tell. So I have a little overlap, but there you go. Look at that little double tiered pop-up. Isn't that a fun technique? All right, so moving on now. Now I think we probably want to put our Merry Christmas in next. So Merry Christmas is actually 2 dies. We did pre-cut them for you because one of our most popular script word dies is the Merry Christmas. We've had that for a few years now. But when it came out, you know, whatever, it didn't come with a shadow. And but because it's been such a popular one, people have asked if they could have a shadow for it. So then in our last release, we did release as separate purchase that you can buy a shadow for it. So you buy these 2 separately, but they coordinate together. And obviously this would not be much use if you didn't have this one, but you can certainly have this one without this one. So it's up to you. But we've cut them both for you. So you've got Merry Christmas in the red sparkle, and then you've got the background pieces in the white. And your best bet is glue for that. Get in a spot where you can see. Like this. And then just adhesive on the back. And just kind of back here in the background. If that's where I put it on mine. And I kind of did it to where the top, you know, the Mary was kind of going straight, the top of the Mary was kind of going that straight this way, which gives you that nice angle, you know, to it. All right. And so we're kind of moving from back to front here to decorate this. Now we have this swag, which can attach to the first 2 swags to suspend between them. Okay. Like that. So you just need a little glue on the outer portion of your suspended swag, and then I'm going to tuck it behind the street lantern and just attach swag to swag. Okay. And it'll suspend between them, and you know, give it a good press in the closed position. It's a great idea as well. Alrighty. Okay, for a place to be able to sign the card, you cut a square of white and a square of the charcoal. Those are going to glue together. You know, I just put the adhesive on the non-textured side, but really, you could do it texture side down. It'd be a little easier to sign, but in mine, the texture side is up, mainly because I didn't think of it. And then you have a wreath with a bow to go on that, kind of however you like it to go. Just decorative. I'm going to do mine where it's kind of coming up and off of the the thing a little bit so it leaves me plenty of room to sign. Then a bow. I'm not sure what that, oh, just a little. And then, you know, I really debated on this. I did, you know, I thought it looked nice. You know, it kind of looks nice off-center too, so to your liking, I decided to center it in my original. But I debated it for a while because I wasn't sure which way would look the best. So, let's see. How much do I care if it's exactly in the center? I don't know that I care that much, but let me see. I've got a grid here. So I've got a 6-inch card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here-ish. The center. Okay, so the only thing we have left for the inside of the card is our gnomes, and the outside of the card is really, really simple. Okay, so, all right, you know how to make gnomes. In fact, these are going to be a little easier. We don't have to put all the pieces on, especially for her, because she's going to be behind the snowbank. So she doesn't need any shoes and she doesn't need any hands. So we did the blonde braids this time. They're both getting the same kind of hat. Her body is going to be the green. And then she's going to get red little sparkle, where's my quick stick? Red little sparkle pigtail bows. And this time, because they're Christmas gnomes, I had you cut the little jingle bells from the Tiny Gnome set to go out on the end of their hats. And then she's going to get a heart too. Okay, so starting with her. Now, you can use the self-adhesive head again. And with girl, remember we attach the self-adhesive head to the body. But then I would grab one of your non-self-adhesive heads and immediately put it behind there, because we do not want her to have a self-adhesive head. Since she's going to be attached to a pop-up, we can't have stray adhesive. So stray adhesive is like not your friend when you're making pop-ups. And if you do end up with stray adhesive anywhere and you feel your card is sticking as you close it or whatever, baby powder or some kind of powder is a really good way to take that sticky off so that your pop-ups will work. All right, so for braids, it's not as important this time, the angle of them, because she's not holding anything. So I'm going to leave that just to your aesthetic preference, but I'm probably going to stick with maybe not as wide as last time, but still kind of starting at the ears and staying somewhat in line with the body. Okay. Then she's going to get a hat. It's going to overlap those braids to my liking. She's going to get a little jingle bell out on the end of her hat. Okay. She's going to get little bows at the end of her pigtails. And her heart does need to be pretty high up on her body, because she is mostly hidden behind the snowbank. So when you're putting that little glitter heart on, just keep it real high under, kind of just under her chin. And then the only thing left for her is her little self-adhesive nose. Once again, if you like the idea of some little brown ink around the edges to give it contrast. And then that's going to overlap her hat a little bit. Oops. And there she is. She doesn't need any shoes, she doesn't need any arms. You do want to be able to get her braids, you don't want any adhesive down here on the braids, because where she's going to go is tucked behind the snow hill, but with braids in front. See? Okay, I'm not going to glue her on yet because I want to make the other gnome and then decide on location. All right, so for him, I'm going to see if I can, you know what would be better is just to use his non-self-adhesive head, right? Because we don't use the head to attach to the body anyway. So I would start with the non-self-adhesive head and then glue the beard on at the bottom of the head, like this. Oops. And some glue above for the mustache, overlapping the beard a little bit. Okay, the adhesive above the head or the top of the head for his hat. That usually just sits down onto the ears. Whether or not that leaves some skin showing is kind of up to you, and it doesn't really much matter. It works either way. But for mine, a little bit of skin was showing. Then some adhesive on the end of the hat for his jingle bell. Okay, and then he's going to get a little snowflake attached to his cap. So since this is a pop-up, we need to use adhesive just on 3 spokes of the snowflake, and only attach those 3 spokes so that all of the area that overhangs, you know, is not adhesive. We'll use the self-adhesive nose, a little bit of ink around the edges. I do know that I'm going fast. I apologize. Trying not to go too far over on time. I think we are going to go over, but hopefully keep it within 15 minutes or so. That might be a dream. All right, little glue in the middle of his beard for his sparkle bow tie. Okay, and then now, oh, that's not straight at all. Now you can attach his beard to his body. Once again for him, I'm just going to go for that tip of the beard, that bottommost point attached to the body so he can be tall. See, there's a fair bit of space between the head and the body then. All right, so his shoes are gray. This time I'll do the dot dot. So two dots to hold them on. Okay. And then he's not going to hold anything, so you get choices in how you put the hands on. So his hands can be pointed towards the middle, or I think he looks cute with his hands just down kind of by his side. So with the tiny gnomes, basically, there's no arm lines, like the arms are sort of implied, right? So you always have the choice of how you do hands. Ooh, he's got a little stray adhesive there. Whoa. That might be a spot for a heart on him. Okay, so then what I did with him is I glued him in front and her behind, and then I kind of just had them sort of centered, you know, in the card. So for him, I'm going to go, and you only want the adhesive where he's going to touch the pop-up. So again, no stray adhesive in a pop-up card. So he goes about right here. And then for her, I can put the adhesive on the front of her body, since she's going to tuck behind. And braids are going to go in front. And it doesn't matter if she goes all the way down. You know, you can make her height whatever. You know, it doesn't matter that she's floating back there. Right? Oh my goodness. Cute, cute, cute. Sorry, I'm complimenting my own card, but it's cute, y'all. Okay, that is the inside of the card. We have only the front to do. Make sure, since we're doing a top fold card, that you're folding it down. If you did do my little trick of writing front on the front, you know for sure that you're decorating the front. Okay, and this one's going to be quick and easy. Snowflake pattern paper. Step number 1. And just centered on that one. I don't think there's an up and down to those snowflakes, so it's whatever side you think is best. All right. Then you have your other snowbank, and you have your plaid stripe to kind of go across the snowbank. And actually, I guess I'm just going to center that. My little snowbank was actually a little bit less wide than my card, but just a smidge. Just make sure that you can tuck Merry Everything and Happy Always behind there. So maybe that just needs to go on first. So Merry Everything and Happy Always. Unless you made another choice, because you had all of those cards to choose from. So I'm just going to put that over here on the right side so that I have an equal amount of snowflake pattern showing on these two sides, since I've got that hill, you know, to fill in down here. And then on the street lantern, I just want to keep it in the card, or, you know, on the front of the card. So probably I'm just going to make it so that the tip of my lantern just kind of comes to the edge of the pattern paper is probably my choice. And this one I am going to just glue it all the way down. I'm not using any pop dots or anything behind it. And I'm going to have it, so for me, and I don't know for sure that you use the same section of paper or even the same one that you pre-cut, but this one, it just happened to be that it had a snowflake right behind there, so I just centered it on that green snowflake. Had it slightly overlap my Merry Everything. All right, and then snowbank to kind of anchor the bottom. Mine isn't quite as wide as my paper, but it's real close. So I'm going to just center it. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make that look intentional by just coming up from the bottom. That's a little trick too, because then it just looks like you wanted to leave a little border, this thin little border around the whole thing. So see, you can always work with things like that when you cut things just a little short. So see, I just left the same border. So then it looks like a design choice, and not that I cut my paper a little too short or a little too long. I guess it was probably me when I did my pattern papers. And then a little plaid to kind of bring out the plaid that's on the inside of the card. And ta-da! Boy, I sped through that one, but I did get it done, thank goodness. This one is a 5x6 card, so it'll mail in an A7 envelope, and it folds real nice and flat. I don't know that you need any extra postage for that. I mean, it's a little rigid. It depends on how, I guess it depends on how rigid your post office is, whether they're going to treat that as a rigid card or not. But otherwise, I think it'll just go for a single stamp. Oh, but I did realize that I left a snowflake off for the inside of the card, so I'm going to take my other snowflake, put adhesive on 3 spokes, and then where I put it is attached to this rightmost lantern. But it is just decorative, so it's kind of up to you. But I realized I hadn't put that on to my card yet. All right, you guys, I would love to stay and chit chat, but I used up all my time and then some. So I'm going to sign off. This is Karen Burniston. Thanks so much for joining us for our fall and Christmas pop-up cards class. If you are not a member of our Pop-Up Peeps group on Facebook, I definitely invite you to join. It's Karen Burniston Pop-Up Peeps on Facebook. Just answer the questions so you can join, and then we would love to see you posting maybe your versions of these cards in other colors and things. We'd love to see it. So everyone have a great holiday season, and I'll see you next time. A huge thanks also to Stampin' Scrapbook Expo for facilitating and hosting this Spotlight event.